Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for December 22nd, 2017. As always, Duane Rollins on the line. I'm myself, Kevin Laramee. It's Soccer Today. It's time to talk about soccer. The last time we talk about soccer before Santa comes, Duane, the last time we talk about soccer before, Boxing Day and this weekend, a lot of soccer in our very near future.
Ho, ho, ho.
Right? Oh, it's...
Ho, ho, ho.
Ever since I've started to be a fan of the Premier League, it started, 5 years ago, probably, I started watching this league more closely. Man, this Christmas time is truly a gift for a soccer fan when you get games just before Christmas, games on the 23rd, then a few days off, and the 26th, and the 29th, and the 31st. Yeah, I'm excited.
It is the most wonderful time of year for that, for sure. It's horrible for the players. Let's not
it's horrible. It's horrible. They don't have any Christmas, no gifts. They have to do it before or after.
No, for sure. I mean, the 26th, but those Boxing Day games they can never take them away. And I think that's actually the main reason, there's a lot of people that talk about the possibility of putting a winter break into the English schedule. But I think the main reason they won't is because they don't want to give that Boxing Day tradition up. Now, I think there's probably a middle ground there. They can play Boxing Day, then take 6 weeks off. But
yeah, exactly. Pull a Germany or something.
Yeah. No, precisely. But it's great for the fan. It's what gets us through these days. Because we love our families, we do, but we kind of need a break from them sometimes too. And
Uncle Joe from Sudbury is always a bit a bit too much. So it's always fun to open the TV.
Yes, I've got the excitement. I've got the Boxing Day games. I've got the Doctor Who Christmas special. I have my holiday set.
Two lives or something? They're like two Doctor in the same episode, and they're both old.
The first Doctor and the 12th Doctor are going to be together, and then we're going to see the woman Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, the 13th Doctor. She's going to they're going to regenerate into each other. It's going to be brilliant, and I'm very, very excited by this. More than I should be. #geek.
I am the Doctor. No. I am the Doctor. Just keep looking at the preview on space here. So yeah, let's talk about soccer. One thing that happened this week, just since our last show, Wednesday, is the League Cup. It was the quarterfinals on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday, Chelsea won, Man City won, and they're going to the semis. On Wednesday, Man United were at Bristol City. And Bristol City took advantage of their home field advantage, scored the winning goal at the 90th minute to eliminate Jose Mourinho's team from the League Cup with a 2-1 win. That was, the joy of victory, the thrill of defeat. Well, that joy of victory, wow, that stadium going ape, going crazy when the last whistles were blown. Man, that's why I love this sport.
Invasion. What more do you want? It's a Christmas pitch invasion. And look, if you look, this is why. Yeah, exactly. That's why I love this sport, because this is a club that is really not that well known. I have a bit of an affinity for because my family in England is from Bristol. So yes, I should be a Bristol City fan, but I'm a sellout and went with the rich team. So don't worry about me. But nonetheless, no. It's the biggest thing that's happened to them in 50 years, and it doesn't matter what happens from this point forward. They beat Manchester United with a last-second goal. What a goal, too. It was a nice goal, and just the reaction in there, the pure joy, it's what we love. That's what makes this game special.
And Bristol has a chance of maybe going to the Premier League next year. They are sitting third right now in the Championship in a playoff position as we speak. But they do have... some shots of actually winning the championship. Will be tough. They're still about they are 8 points away from Wolverhampton Wanderers, which are first. Cardiff City, which was in the Champions League 2 years ago, the team from Wales with their Indonesian or Malaysian ownership, Vincent Tan. But this team of Bristol City doesn't necessarily have the money of a Cardiff City if you're looking at it in the championship, but still are performing really well. A well-coached team that could be promoted to the Premier League and their first, well, I don't like that expression, but it's still when it counts. It's their first trophy. I was going to say their first scalp. I don't like that expression, so I'm going to say their first trophy is Man United before even going into the Premier League. So it bodes well for Bristol.
And they've never been up there before, and it is, Bristol is actually a fairly big city in England that doesn't have Premier League representation, never has. So I think it would be good for a city like that to get up there. But for sure, this is a remarkable situation for them, and getting this semifinal appearance, it's going to be 2 more games against a very big club, because we know the 3 clubs that are also through are Chelsea, City, and Arsenal. So the draw is going to be very big for them. That's a major for a club like that. They're going to have another draw. They're going to have the excitement of playing those clubs, and that's what makes these cup competitions worthwhile. And a lot of people look down their nose at the League Cup, but to me, I always think it's a brilliant competition in the sense that it's quick. It happens bang, 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 bang. It's done by February. It's really not that taxing on your roster, and it provides.
There's always at least one upset, right? There's always at least one upset or one result that's like, oh, right, that's why we love cup competitions, because of the one-off aspect, because of the upset aspect that you can see. That's why big tournaments in the world, if you talk about March Madness, if you're talking about tennis tournaments, golf tournaments, what people really get behind in big tournaments or tournaments in itself is the narratives and the storylines. And in a small competition, I say small because of the duration, not because of the clubs involved, but the League Cup is a smaller competition example than the FA Cup, but you get those stories out of it still. It doesn't happen every year, but I remember a few years ago, Sutton United made a big run in the FA Cup, and we're still talking about this, and they're still reaping the rewards with the money they made, and that's not a small reward for Bristol City as well. The funds allocation, because of them reaching the semifinal, will be like equivalent to the entire roster almost that they have to pay. So that's an influx of money going into maybe the Premier League next year that will be very useful.
As you said, it's going to help them try and close that gap on wealthier sides within the championship. And you mentioned the promotion of the championship. That's a tough slog. That league is maybe the most competitive in the world in many ways in terms of the top to bottom, because you look at the standings at any given time, and you're looking at just very few points between being 10th and being first, right?
And it's a 44-game season.
Yeah,
add all the cup competition, add League Cup, add FA Cup. They don't need to play European football when you're in championship, because you have games every single 2-3 days nonetheless.
It's a war. It absolutely is, and it's going to be tough for them. And like that's the argument for those teams. A lot of them will not take the League Cup seriously because they want to focus on the possibility of getting promotion, because there's much more money involved in getting to the Premier League. But I think that's a mistake, because you saw the reaction of those fans yesterday, or 2 days ago now, when they won that game. It's because it's the biggest thing that they're going to have, and those moments are why you play this sport. So I always feel this when you're looking at both the lower level Premier League teams that kind of dump cup competitions and upper level championship teams that do the same. They're kind of missing the point. Yeah, I get the financial part of this, but why are you playing if you're not trying to win something? You're realistically not going to win the Premier League ever, right? Like, I mean, Leicester happened a couple of years ago, as we well know, but
it will never happen again, or not for a very, very long time. If you are inclined to follow Bristol City from now on, it's literally the half of the championship season. Their next game is tomorrow on the 23rd against QPR on the road. They're traveling to London to face the Rangers. That's going to be an interesting game, so if you can, watch this game from Loftus Road. The championship is fun to watch, Duane, and I don't think we talk about it enough, but I enjoy the championship in a different way, because it's not about just the stars. It's not about just the big names, big clubs. The entire table is important. The entire game, you see different type of clubs, different type of ownership, different mentalities, philosophies, tactics. Those are really the things that make a big difference in a championship. It's not just about this one-off talent that you got that nobody else has. It's not because you have Messi and everybody else has nobody. No, it's truly a team type of league where a team will win An individual cannot carry a team throughout this entire season. There's a lot of reasons why I love the championship and why I think we don't talk about it enough.
Well, yeah, we don't talk about it enough. You're right. It is hard to watch over here at times. You kind of have to find illegal streams or watch
or pay for Sportsnet World or something, which I do. But you get one game a week maybe with the championship on it.
No, exactly. Like there's not a ton of games that you can access outside of England in that league, but for sure it's a fun league to watch, and it's not predictable. It's not predictable in the same way that the Premier League is, where outside of that Leicester outlier that we talk about and everyone sort of points to, but outside of that year, which was so shocking because it was shocking, you pretty much know who's going to win before the season starts. Whereas in the championship, you're not quite sure. You talk about Cardiff City there. Like Cardiff's been like a team that has a lot of money for a few years now, but they've been down for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, they came up for one season and they didn't stay up. They went back down.
Yeah, and they're not able to get back up easily. QPR is a team that was in the Premier League for many years, and they've been down for a while now. You look at Villa. Villa's been down for 2 seasons now. There's no guarantee they're going to go back up. But
Newcastle did one off where they got relegated, won the championship the year after, and came back right away. It's either that, or you might be stuck there for a while.
There's a lot going on. For sure. It's a worthwhile league to watch 100%.
Speaking of the Premier League, let's talk about some games we're going to see today and this weekend. A few interesting games in the Premier League. Arsenal-Liverpool this afternoon. Arsenal at home. Can Arsenal... I don't know what to think about Arsenal, Duane. I don't know. They're terrible against some teams. And then out of a sudden, they beat a team 3-0, a top 4 team, and they look like they're back, but then they don't after. I'm kind of inclined to favor Liverpool this afternoon.
Interesting matchup for sure. Liverpool has been playing pretty well in the last half of the season. Arsenal, after, there was a lot of talk early in the year. There was a lot of, sort of looking down your nose at Arsenal, but they have turned it around quietly. In fact, they're ahead of Spurs right now. So that's, as much as we were talking earlier in the season about how great Spurs was, now you look at the table and Arsenal's ahead of them. So obviously they turned it around a little bit, and there's not a lot of. I don't know if the Wenger out's not happening right now because people are just tired, or whether
there's a fatigue. There's a Wenger out fatigue, but every day that passes, Duane, I think we're closer to the day where Arsene Wenger will leave Arsenal, and it's more and more looking like it might happen next spring/summer.
Yeah, he's going to leave on his own accord. I think that that's pretty obvious right now. But nonetheless, I don't know what Arsenal is right now. I don't think Arsenal knows what Arsenal is right now. But in terms of today's game, as you say, Liverpool's the team on that's on form right now. But don't sleep on the Gunners. They're a proud club, and they this is going to be an interesting game. I don't know how to handicap this one. I wouldn't wager on it. If I were a betting man, which I am, I would not wager on this one.
No, of course. And there's a few other games interesting tomorrow. It starts very early tomorrow morning. Before I talk about the Premier League game tomorrow, there's one game from La Liga that we might all be watching tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., and that is the Clásico, El Clásico, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and the Clásico at 7 a.m. And someone asked me yesterday, Duane, why is it so early? Like 7 a.m.? Why did they play so early in Spain, too? It's like, 1 in the afternoon, noon? I'm like, you really want to know? Because they don't want people to be stupid drunk when the game starts. So that's why they started early.
Yeah, that's really early for Spain. 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Spain might as well be 3 in the morning the way they live. But yeah, no, that's exactly why they play. If you ever noticed, the Manchester Derby was at 11 a.m. Recently, and it was shocking to anyone who has followed that for years because it's always at 7 in the morning here, which is precisely for the reason you speak of. So yeah, that's why they do it. But Barcelona can pretty much put a death knell on the title race if they get this win, and so it's big that way. Real Madrid's having a very disappointing season for them, and you have to wonder how if Zidane was not Zidane, would he be in trouble? That's the question with Real Madrid.
If Zidane wasn't Zidane, would he still be there right now? Like, that's barely an exaggeration. Because if you look at the patience that Madrid has with results. Yeah, they're outside of the top four right now in La Liga. Maybe they just climbed back in the top four, but for a while they were not even in striking distance. Weren't you talking about 2-digit difference of points between Barcelona and Madrid? You're not looking at a successful campaign in La Liga. Of course, there's a Champions League and there's other aspect. And Ronaldo, we didn't really talk about it, but Ronaldo won the Ballon d'Or for his 5th time this year, and maybe as I've claimed the best ever, or at least the best of his generation, ex aequo with maybe a Messi. But yeah, outside of that, this half of the Liga season has been a disappointment for the Galacticos.
No, for sure, and confusing. It's been a confusing season in Spain. At the start of the year, we were talking about how Barcelona was in turmoil, and then there was all this controversy swirling around them, and they've just sort of rolled on, right?
They just started winning and winning and winning and scoring goals and winning.
And, you know, Ronaldo does Ronaldo stuff. Messi's probably just, as we talked about, the heel turn that Messi made a few years ago, or a few months ago. I guess it would be last year sometime. Whenever he grew the beard, that's when he did the heel turn. He's gonna raise that trophy. I don't think there's any doubt that Barcelona is going to win La Liga. It's really, at this point in time, you have to ask yourself what's most important for those teams. Is it winning La Liga, or beating the rival, or is it winning the Champions League? Because both are still in that mix. And would anyone be shocked? How have we not had an El Clasico Champions League final yet? Like, how has that not managed to happen? That's kind of surprising. But I guess the luck of the draw. They haven't really even played in the Champions League very often. I can't remember the last time.
That would be fun to watch. It would be definitely something to get everybody excited. That, or maybe a Manchester Derby too, in a Champions League final one day.
Oh no! That would kill me. That would literally kill me. Literally. I know the difference between figuratively and literally. I'm talking literally kill me.
Like, the liver wouldn't take it, and the heart couldn't handle that pressure.
Oh no! I'd drop dead in the middle of the second half of that game. Yeah, no, it'd be all over for Duane. You'd have memorials for me.
Memorials for you at the 24th minute, the game after.
Yeah.
But just before we talk about the few interesting game on Boxing Day, yes, the names on the marquee are maybe not spectacular this year, but there's one game in particular that I think is quite interesting on Boxing Day. But before we talk about that, Swansea City have sacked Paul Clements a few days ago as well. Another English manager sacked in the Premier League, and that led to a thought experiment for a few pundits, for a few talking soccer heads over the last few days. Is the Premier League the best place for England manager? Are England managers giving enough ropes in the Premier League?
I think that's a silly argument when, Big Sam keeps getting jobs and, Brendan Rodgers.
It's always the same four guys. It's always Allardyce, Pardew, Mark Hughes, Tony Pulis. Like, those four guys have probably coached every single team in the Premier League outside of the top four.
Yeah. I said Rodgers. I know he's in Scotland right now, but yes. Nonetheless, no, I think they get plenty of rope. The question is whether they're good enough and whether they're complacent, and that's an interesting debate. When the Swansea news broke, the first thought that popped in my mind is, so you're telling me it wasn't Bob Bradley's fault then? They're just maybe not good. That's kind of what.
Forgot about that. I forgot about Bob Bradley. That's like a year ago.
I know. It's who replaced him, right? So, and he's only won 4 games or something like that in the last year. Swansea's just not talented enough. That's their problem. I watched the City Swansea game last week, and it could have been 10-0. It was ugly. There's a talent deficit there, and that's not necessarily the manager's fault.
No, absolutely. That's for sure not the manager's fault. One game on Boxing Day that is intriguing to me, Duane, and that's Man United Burnley. This game is more close than people anticipate. Burnley, a top 6 club as we speak, having the season of a lifetime under Sean Dyche. It's been a few years that Sean Dyche has been really molding this club and upgrading this club slowly but surely with knowledge and coaching some players that grew up with this club from the Championship to the Premier League and now being in the Premier League for 2 years, staying up last year and this year, making a run for the top 10, making a run close to the top 5, might be playing in Europe if things stay this way. in a game that could cement their position on the table by beating a big name who just got beat by a lower team the same week. Man United Burnley on Boxing Day at 10 a.m. That's a classic matchup for me.
That's weird that we're going to talk about Burnley v United as a classic matchup, but for sure that's the best story in the Premier League this season for sure is Burnley's success, and I think most people are probably cheering for them to find one of those European spots, and that's I'd be very interested if in theory they were to capture. There's 3 of the 4 top teams are likely going to finish top 6, so that are in the League Cup finals, the semifinals, I should say. So probably going to be 6 teams at least that go to Europe, probably 7 if you consider that one of those the top 4 teams are likely going to go on to win the FA Cup as well. So if you get top 7, you're going to Europe. And look, if Burnley were to go to Europe, I'd be very curious to see how they treat it. And this goes back to what I said a minute ago is yeah, you could dump those games because you're prioritizing the idea of staying up in the Premier League, or you can treat them with the respect that they deserve and say, look, our fans that have been loyal to us, this is for them, and let's try and go out and win these games. That's why it's so disappointing how Everton treated the Europa League this year. I mean, come on, man. Like, why dump those games? I don't get them. If you're Everton, for instance, you're not going down, maybe. But
well, you don't want to, but they were close at one point.
Yeah, still, I mean, it's not like Everton plays in Europe every year, so why treat them with disrespect? I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. Like, your fans deserve you to buy in fully to these competitions because you have a chance in them. You don't have a chance to win the Premier League. You really don't. I mean, Leicester happened.
To be fair, yeah, you're right.
It's not going to happen soon again. You
No.
need to take these teams seriously. So I'd be curious to see what Burnley did if they were to make Europe. Still a long way to go, but
it's
a
always
great first half of the season.
The attitude of playing with fear or just playing your game, right? If you're so scared not to lose or to be exposed, well, guess what? You'll lose and you will be exposed. It's always that fine line of, do we play our game? Do we play what we need to? Or do we trying to think too much and no, we're not going to prioritize this, we're going to prioritize that instead, and let's rest players here and there. If you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, you're not going to get any of them. So I think that's one of the reasons why if Burnley makes it to Europe, I kind of hope they don't change anything. Just treat them as normal games and play just normally and see what happens.
Are you saying there's cake around here somewhere? Where's the cake?
I would love cake. You know what I would love? Like a festive Yule log right about now with a glass of eggnog. That would be really good, Duane.
I would like some cake. Someone get me cake.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the re-entry draft and Major League Soccer.
This Christmas, forget all of your worries and enjoy the festive season with the gift of music.
But the top man was a jolly happy soul. With a different hairstyle every game, he just couldn't score a goal.
The best Christmas songs for the best time of the year.
Getting injured once again, but he'll stay in Madrid, 'cause he's still getting paid. Oh, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Enjoy all the classics like All I Want for Christmas Is You, Zlatan Baby, and many, many more.
Last Christmas I gave you Joe Hart, but the very next day you gave him away.
So when you're sat by the fire with your loved ones, make sure you sing along to the best holiday collection ever.
Better get used to not being big. Better not think about winning the league. Jurgen Klopp is staying in town.
Buy now and get a Suarez gobstopper and a Ronaldo fidget spinner for free.
We wish you a messy Christmas and a happy New Year.
Zlatan baby, coming on the Christmas tonight. Zlatan baby. I want to hear that song now.
It sounds amazing. I like the we gave you Joe Hart.
We gave you Joe Hart on Last Christmas. Oh, that's my favorite Christmas song ever, though.
Yeah, those are funny.
Last Christmas, I gave you Joe Hart, and then the very next day, you sent him away. Oh, that's awesome.
Where did you find that?
That's 90 minutes. So thanks, 90 minutes social media. And on YouTube, I saw that today. And I'm like, yeah, that's my bumper for today. That's so awesome. But speaking of re-entry drafts, 3 names were picked by MLS teams in the Stage 2 of the re-entry draft yesterday, Duane, and 2 of those are LA teams. We have Carlos Veron, formerly of the Red Bulls of New York, who got picked up. We have as well Callum Malice, formerly of the Montreal Impact and the Seattle Sounders. He never really actually played for the Sounders, but he was there for half the season. And now he will be maybe in LA. And the funny thing is, with the re-entry draft Stage 2, right, when you decide to pick a player, you have to give him like a regular offer. Like you have to give him like what they call it a honest offer, where you actually want him. You really want him, you make him a decent offer, and you'll get him. And if you don't get into an agreement, he becomes a free agent. And the players that haven't been picked in the Stage 2 re-entry draft are now free to sign with any other MLS team or other team in the world, for that matter, on a free transfer.
Yeah, no, I found it interesting that they're only. So this is the lowest amount of movement that we've seen in the re-entry draft since it came in. I don't know what that means exactly. Certainly, the idea that these players are free agents now is interesting. And in many ways, if you're a player, you kind of want to go through this. So maybe you might want to go through this and be that free agent because you can shop yourself around anywhere. But at the same time, there's maybe an indication there that teams aren't interested. The Laba situation, not getting picked, is interesting to me too. This is a player that a couple of years ago was considered, maybe the dark horse, like unheralded player in the league, and now he's flipping out. Maybe there's a message going out there, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like some of these players could be telling teams that they're not interested, and that's why they're getting passed by. So certainly, kind of a strange little lack of movement here. But maybe some of these guys are looking to move on.
And some of these players weren't available to be re-entry draft because it has to do with the TAM as well. The funny thing is, I don't know if we have time today to explain the whole David Ousted situation that happened last week. But the thing is, TAM players, how can you can use TAM in your team? It's not just how you would want it. There's rules, and not every player can be a TAM player. TAM exists, which is targeted allocation money, exists in a way to permit teams to have more than 3 DPs, technically. So when you can use TAM, if it's new contracts only, you can use TAM on the amount of the DP's contract or the player's contract. You put TAM on it to bring it under the DP threshold so you can have him on your team and having more than 3 quote-unquote DPs. The thing is, if you put yourself in a David Ousted situation, with the contract that he had already, his salary for 2018 would have been over $600,000, and the threshold for designated player will be a hair over $500,000. So he would have been a DP if he signs for, if his option is picked up by any team, or he would have been a DP. So that's why he's not a TAM player, because his contract isn't new. So if you bring him to a team, you cannot apply TAM money to him because his contract is not new. So you couldn't apply money to him. And the other way you could have signed him is if you already have 2 DP. If you have a free DP slot, it's fine. You can sign him. But if, for example, a team like the LA Galaxy with 3 DPs, both Dos Santos brothers and Sandrini. So with those 3 DPs, example, you're LA Galaxy and you wanted David Ousted. All right? It's an example that I read on 442 USA, but it explains the situation very well. If you're David Ousted, you can't sign for Vancouver. LA wants you. LA's got 3 DPs, and all DPs are making over $1 million. So the amount of TAM money that you would need to apply to one of those DPs to free up a DP slot to sign Ousted is like over $500,000, and nobody has that amount of TAM. It's a lot smaller amount to bring a contract of $550, $600 underneath the 500 threshold. So for a player like David Ousted, he literally gets screwed by his own contract because no team has enough TAM to apply to another contract to make that contract under the DP threshold so they can sign Ousted as a DP because of the contract that he signed for Vancouver. So that's one of the examples of how sometimes it's more complicated than just, we have TAM, we'll apply TAM here, and this contract will fit under the DP threshold and we're fine. It has to do with new contracts, so it's a bit complicated.
Yeah, a bit complicated doesn't do that justice. And look, Ousted's getting screwed here. Let's not kid ourselves. And he reached out on social media to sort of express his frustration with that. Obviously, this has to get addressed, and this is why I have trouble getting excited about the reentry draft, is because I think that these players just should be free to negotiate with whoever they want. I don't like the restrictions that they put on them at all. I mean, it's better than it was in the past when they basically were held hostage by their former clubs, but this is not that much better. And the idea that he wasn't eligible for this is just, it's silly. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why aren't you eligible to get found? And what's he going to do next year? Right now, he basically has to leave the league. You're forcing players to leave the league.
He's forcing the player to leave the league or to sign at a discount. That's the thing. He can probably sign with a new team now. He's a free agent since yesterday. But he has probably to sign a discount, probably a lot smaller rate, or he might have to find a job in Europe somewhere, because David Ousted wants to play. So we'll see if this European goalkeeper finds a place in Europe, or maybe somewhere else, maybe in USL or somewhere. And that's what he doesn't want. So he wants top flight action. So it's just an example. There's hundreds of examples like this across the league, and I think it bodes not necessarily that well for the next CBA negotiations, because it's coming more sooner than rather than later. But there's a lot of things will need to be addressed. I think the free agent and the TAM are things that need to maybe be a bit more transparent heading into next CBA.
A bit more transparent. That should be on MLS's,
that should be on a
business
T-shirt.
card.
Should be on a T-shirt.
Need to be a bit more. And they're trying a bit more. Like, this year we did get to hear how much allocation was being given in trades. That was, such a baby step. It's very telling how excited we were when we finally heard that, saw the amounts given out there.
I remember clearly when it happened. We were both reading an article by Paul Tenorio in January? Just before the draft. Just the day before the draft. And there's Don Garber's it's last year. And he's like, so we have a trade. We're trading this guy, Atlanta, for $400,000. What? We have the amount? What? That's awesome.
That was almost a year ago now, but yes, that's so exciting, and that's so telling how excited we were by that such simple thing. But next maybe MLS will actually explain the rules to us and not make them up as they go along. That would be great.
Well, to explain the rule, you need to have them written down and to be consistent. I don't think we're there yet, so maybe next year it'll be a bit more.
They've got one of those whiteboards somewhere. They can just erase them with a dry erase marker. So yeah, exactly. I think that's how they do the rules. Or they're at a bar, they get drunk, and they make a new rule up. I think that's pretty much how they figure this stuff out.
Yeah, it makes sense. I believe you. All right, to finish the show today, Duane, we've talked about the re-entry draft, Boxing Day, the Premier League. Another important aspect of Major League Soccer expansion happened this week, with Nashville being given an expansion, and the next day it was announced that there's a delay in the announcement of the second expansion team of this round of expansion. 4 teams were selected mid-year as the favorites, as the contenders for the 2 spots. One was announced this week. Nashville leaves us with Sacramento, Detroit, and Cincinnati. We talked on Wednesday's shows about Sacramento's potential with maybe some trouble with the bid, and maybe some feeling that the fan base will be left with no MLS bid after this process, because of money and a more sexy city like Detroit can take it over, or Cincinnati. But yesterday, Kevin Nagel and MLS Sacramento Republic FC itself wrote a letter, and the letter goes a little bit something like this. I'm just going to read a few excerpts, Duane, just to put in perspective. We'll talk about it in a second. To the Sacramento Republic FC family, first, I want to thank you for your commitment, loyalty, and patience over the past few weeks. I understand why emotions are running high, and I am right there with you. Second, we fully respect and honor the MLS expansion process and timeline. We understand the importance of this decision to the league and their desire to take the time to get it right. Third, I want to take a quick moment and thank our mayor, Daryl Steinberg, for being such a champion and advocate for Republic FC and the MLS bid. With that said, I'm writing to update you on our progress and path ahead. As most of you know, yesterday MLS announced Nashville as the first of 2 expansion cities that MLS will select in this round. On behalf of Republic FC, I congratulate lead investor John Ingram, Mayor Megan Barry, and the people of Nashville for successful bid. Fortunately, MLS has also made clear that Sacramento is still in the running for the second expansion slot. Earlier today, the league announced plans to continue to work with Sacramento and the other 2 remaining finalists Detroit, and Cincinnati before deciding on the second expansion team. I know that for many of you, this will feel like yet another extension in an already extended process. But as we often see on the pitch, sometimes a hard-fought match doesn't get decided until extra time. In that spirit, we plan to take this as an opportunity to strengthen our bid in nearly every aspect of our bid we've delivered. We've proven our market started construction on a visionary stadium and assembled a committed ownership group offering deep sports expertise and local roots. But one area remains open to improvement: the strength of our funding plan. Towards the later stages of the expansion process, we recognize the need to bolster our overall capital structure. This challenge primarily emerged as a result of how much the financial picture of our MLS bid has changed. Since our investor group originally formed in 2014, the combined costs of the MLS expansion fee and our world-class downtown stadium plan have risen by nearly $150 million. While these are typical challenges in business, sports, and MLS, the evolving bid costs have required us to revisit and rethink how we fund this bid. I'll stop my reading here for today. You can read the rest of it on SacRepublicFC.com in the news article section. Duane, with what I just read, you know what I take out, especially the last part, is an ownership group who writes a letter to maybe lay down expectations, to bring them down a bit, and make them realize that maybe we don't have the money necessary to have an MLS team.
Well, which is what the reporting was last week, right? Like, more money. That's what they're saying. We need more money. Forgive me for saying more money 3 times now. But
more problems?
Yeah,
more money, more problems? What's up, Biggie?
I always quote Biggie in the morning. That's what I do. That's me. I'm very, very hip that way. But look, yeah, that's the reporting was last week, is that they didn't, the financial backing of their ownership group wasn't strong enough, and that was probably what was going to hold Sacramento back. So obviously this is getting out there, and you're right, they're writing this letter is almost like this might not happen until the next round. That almost is what that sounds to me like. Is
what it actually sounds to me? It sounds to me like, we're trying, we're doing our best. Don't get your hopes up too much, and if we don't have it, it's not because we haven't tried. So please come back and see us. It's because we just can't. I think there's a bit of that in that letter.
Don't get so frustrated that you walk away from the team altogether.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because
keep your season tickets. Don't let this be your deterrent from liking Sacramento football.
Yeah, well, and I think that, look, I would be, at this point in time, it's gone from, I've never, as anyone who's listened to this show consistently over the past couple of years knows, I've never been sold on the fact that they are going to be an MLS team ever. I at this point in time, I'm actually be surprised if they are. I think that Cincinnati is probably going to get that second bid, if not Detroit. I can see the value in going to Detroit as a market, and I think they'd rather go to Detroit as a market, and so it wouldn't shock me if they did there, but Cincinnati probably has a slightly better bid at this point. One of those two teams is likely going to go in. They're going to go with two Middle America kind of Midwest teams for this round. They said that point blank. Anyone who was paying any attention knows that MLS said that they thought that the region that they were least represented in right now was the Midwest, and they were going to try and address that. And I think that probably what you're going to hear for the next expansion round is the region that we're least represented in is the Southwest. And they're probably going to address that too. Don't be shocked if it's San Diego and Phoenix that come in the next round. Just because you show up in numbers at the lower level, which is great as a fan thing, and it's great as a culture for your club, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that bid unless you have the stadium and unless you have the ownership attached. And this is a broken record. We've said this so many times now.
And we know MLS, right? We've been following MLS for a long time. And we know a lot of people who write about MLS and follow MLS for a long time. And the words of Charles Boehm on social media the last few days, one tweet that I really like is like, look, we got 3 cities left. 2 lower league soccer teams that want to basically have a promotion aspect to them, that have shown their prowess with fans and legion of supporters and success at a lower level. And you have a market that is sexy for the league itself with a lot of money and potential TV market, money. And so which one will it be, right?
you've got two small markets that are doing well at the lower levels, and you have a market that's in every other professional sport, and is synonymous with being at the top level of professional sport in North America, right? Like,
So MLS will choose
MLS
Detroit.
wants in Detroit.
It's got to be Detroit. That's what I've been saying all along. Detroit was my dark horse, and so far so good. But yeah, it's not about me.
I mean, yeah. Well, Cincinnati and Sacramento are very similar in the sense they both have one professional team at the highest level, different sports, but they do. But other than that, really, their main selling point is how successful they've been at the lower level. And what you have to wonder is how damaging failing to get in will be for these cities, and whether they have the will to like continue to push on. Because if they don't get in this round, I would have to say that you have to dismiss them for next round too, because they're clearly there. Like they clearly would support the game. So if MLS is bypassing them now, what's going to change in 2 years when they're naming the next two teams? Not much, really, right?
No, not much at all. Not much at all. So we feel like there's a chance Sacramento doesn't get a team. We strongly feel about this. But if you want to read the entire letter, again, you can read it on SacRepublicFC.com, and you can go to IndomitablesSoccer.com. Anyways, Evan Reams blog, where you can find more about the Sacramento Republic situation and the letter about Kevin Nichols yesterday. Duane, it's getting close. Santa's coming soon. I got some wrapping to do. I got some gifts to put under the tree. I got some milk and cookies to take out, and I have to drink some eggnog. So I'm going to wish you a great soccer, Duane, during the holidays.
Okay. All right. Cool.
And to all our listeners, thank you for listening in 2017. We'll be back a few shows next week. We have a few special shows planned for next week. We'll be back after Boxing Day to talk about all the actions of Boxing Day, the news of Major League Soccer offseason. We might have a few signing up until next week, and we'll talk about it on this show. For listeners of Five Rings, we'll do Five Rings a little later today. And as always, until next time, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kevin Laramee. Happy holidays, and have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.